Hello guys, good day and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, you're welcome. My name is Oluwatosin and this is So with Tosin. And to all my returning subscribers, you are equally welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by today's video. Guys, in today's tutorial, we are going to be learning how to draft a princess dart bustier. And this tutorial is going to be freehand sketching and freehand cutting. So guys, once again, thank you so much for all your comments on my previous videos. Thanks for finding my channel worthy to subscribe to my new subscribers. Thank you so much for the like and for the love expressed towards my channel. I really appreciate it and I don't take it for granted. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the video. So we are going to be starting with the front panel, and then to cut Princess Dart bustier for anybody at all, here are the basic measurements you need. You need the half length, the bust, the waist, the shoulder to nipple, the shoulder to under bust, the shoulder, and then the nipple to nipple. Moving ahead, here is my already cut out pattern paper for the front panel. This person's bust is 40, so I went ahead to measure 40 and then I added 14 inches allowance. And I divided that into 4 and then I cut it out. So this is basically 10 plus 3.5 inches, and my pattern is on fold of 2 because this is the front panel. Then a half length is 16. I added 2 inches to the length as a sewing allowance. The next is I measured her back, which is the shoulder. Her shoulder is 15. I divided by 2, it gives me 7.5. At this point, I love to add 2 inches allowance to my shoulder because after joining and turning the neck before fixing my sleeve, I still always like remeasure my arm, my shoulder, and then I will recut the armhole. So at this point, I love to add 2 inches. So armhole is 19, but at this point I used 8. Then I connected the armhole curve. So guys, after connecting the armhole curve, the next thing is to measure a nipple to nipple. This person's nipple to nipple is actually 7. I'll be dividing that by 2, then I'll be adding half inch allowance. So in total, I'm going to be measuring 4. It's supposed to be 3.5, but because of half inch allowance, I'll be measuring 4. Then I'll mark that at like 3 to 5 points, and then I'll connect it into a straight line, just as I'm doing. It is that simple. So after connecting the points together, after I've drawn my nipple to nipple line, on that same line I'll go ahead to measure my shoulder to nipple. In the case of this person, our shoulder to nipple is 11, but I'll be adding half inch allowance. The half inch is the one I'll use to join like the shoulder line together. Then I'll measure our shoulder to under our bust. As is 14, I'll still add half inch allowance. Then I'll draw those 2 points into a straight line. After that, I'll come down, and then from my nipple to nipple line, I'll measure 2.5 inches forward. Guys, you can either use 2 or 2.5 at this point, but for me, any bust that is above 37, 38, I love to use 2.5 so that the cup will be like pronounced to fit the exact bust size. So in this case, I'll be using 2.5, and then I'll connect that point up to like under the bust, from the waistline to under the bust. Remember that this is the shoulder to nipple line, and the second line is the shoulder to under bust. So I'll connect the line up to the under bust, just like I did now. It is that simple. So the next thing, guys, is on the armhole curve. I'll divide the armhole by 2. In our case, I used 8, so I'll divide the 8 by 2. It gives me 4. Then I'll put a mark at that 4. Then the next thing is to draw the cup itself. So to draw the cup, I'm going to like draw an arc starting from the 2.5 inches I measured. I'll draw an arc like that. Then from the 4 inches I measured, I'll connect it to join the arc. Guys, remember I said earlier that this video, it's a freehand sketching and a freehand cutting. Like, let's say you're somewhere and you don't have access to your French curve and curved ruler and all of that, you can still cut your princess dart bustier. So the next thing I'll be doing now is on that, from that point, I'll measure 2 inches downward, and on the 2 inches, on that 2 inches, I'll measure 1 inch forward and 1 inch backward. I don't know if that makes sense, guys. I don't know if that is understandable enough. On the 2 inches, measure 1 inch forward and then 1 inch backward, and look for a way to connect it inside your original cup that you've drawn, like that. So moving ahead, we have to mark out the neckline, and this, for the sake of this video, we are going to be using a round neck that has neck width of 7. I'll divide the 7 by 2. I marked 3.5, and then the neck depth is 5. Then it is a round neck or a U-neck, however way you call it. So I'm going to be drawing my neckline. Then the next thing basically is to cut it out. But before cutting it out, I'm just going to like shade the part that I'll cut out so that it will be easier to identify. So the shaded area is the part that I'm cutting out. So I cut the armhole. Go ahead to cut it out. Cut out the part that is shaded. Remove your neckline. Then I went ahead to slant my shoulder towards the armhole region. And this is what we have for the front panel. Guys, for me, when I'm cutting this, I don't shape at this point. I shape after I must have transferred it to my main fabric and joined it, and then I'll come back to shape. But if you want to shape at this point, it's simple. All you need to do is divide the bust by 4. In our case, is 40. I'll be dividing the 40 by 4, which gives me 10. Then I'll add 2 inches sewing allowance. I'll also divide our waist by 4, which is 35. It gives me 8.5 1/4. Then I'll mark 8.5 1/4. Then the 2.5 inches allowance that I removed at the middle, I'll put it back. I'll measure the 2.5 inches before proceeding to measure the 2 inches sewing allowance. You can use 1 inch as your sewing allowance. You can also use 1.5, but I love to use 2 inches for all my sewing allowance basically. So that's it, and then you just connect your points together. Guys, please, at this point, if you've not subscribed, kindly do, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you get notified when next I upload new video on this channel. So basically, guys, this is what the front panel for my princess dart bustier is looking like. The next is moving to the back panel. This is also my pattern paper that measures half length of 16 plus 2 inches, which makes it 18. Then a bust 40 plus 3.5 inch allowance. The next thing I'll be measuring is zip allowance. I have to mark out my zip allowance. It is very, very important, except the outfit I'm cutting does not have zip. So I used 1.5 inch for zip allowance. The next is I'll be marking out a nipple to nipple, which is 4 with my ½ inch allowance inclusive. If I have a curved ruler, I can just go ahead to like draw the curve like that, but because I said this video is freehand cutting and then freehand sketching, I'll be using my freehand to connect my points together from that point to the nipple to nipple point. The next is I'll be measuring a shoulder. A shoulder is 7.5. Don't forget that I said at this point we'll be adding 2 inches allowance. It is when we are done joining that we'll come back and we measure the shoulder, and then we cut the shoulder and we cut the armhole. I hope that is clear enough. So our armhole, I used 8, then I drew the armhole curve. The next is shaping. Our bust is 40. I'll divide it by 4. It gives me 10.5. I'll be adding 2 inches sewing allowance. Then our waist divided by 4, 35 divided by 4 plus 2 inches sewing allowance. Then I'll connect my point together. After connecting my point together, I'll proceed to marking out my neckline. This is a round neck as well, just as the front, but it's a little bit higher than the front. This is going to be neck depth of just 2, and then neck width of 3.5. That's 7. Then I'll cut out, and basically that is it for the back panel. The back panel is always so easy. So guys, that brings us to the end of this video. If you find this video interesting, please don't forget to give my video a thumbs up. You can also share my video amongst your soulmates, and if you have any question at all, you can always ask me in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you